Alright, guys. So, I had never heard of this person before, okay? But YouTube recommended this, right? And this is Amala Ekpunobi. Now, I did have to do a little bit of research to see exactly how that was pronounced, so hopefully I got it right. If not, please let me know. I do try and be respectful to everyone I feature on the channel. It should be noted that I usually don't agree with very many conservatives. Okay. There's a lot I do agree with. Okay. But there's also a lot of conservatives that I just can't. That being most of the commentators, right, that are conservative. Like, those are usually the conservatives that I just can't agree with on like hardly anything, right? And the reason why is because anything that doesn't align with what they believe, they write it off immediately. And they'll even like try and pretend like they haven't written it off. But it's like talking to a brick wall. They are never going to give any credit or weight to anything that doesn't align with what they already believe. Okay. So it's like, in order for you to gain any bit of respect from them, you have to agree with everything they say. And if you don't, that means you're the enemy. Okay? So they completely disregard this one aspect, that external factors change and alter your perception. So if you grew up in a neighborhood exactly like, whatever commentator it is, then you might have a very similar outlook on life. But if your experiences were much different, your outlook on life is probably not going to align with what theirs is. And it could. It could be that they've watched enough media and watched enough news or watched enough debates that they could alter their perception and see things the way they do, even though they haven't lived those experiences. That is extremely possible. But it should also be like understood that that's not always going to be the case. And two people can believe two different things and both still be right because it's based on anecdotal evidence. That's exactly what it is. And so, having said all that, I really appreciate that she says, I don't really agree with his politics, but it's still worth like digging into and understanding. And I love that. And I think like this is the goal of like every commentator, regardless of what side you're on. If you could understand that there's logical points being made, or at least that they're talking about important things, then it's worth digging into, understanding the arguments being made, and then like thinking critically about those arguments. Is it possible that Kendrick Lamar's experiences are different than what you think they were? And maybe Kendrick Lamar's views do align with Kendrick Lamar's life experiences that has changed and altered, his perception. And so it makes sense for him to view the world the way he does. I think that's a valid way of looking at it, right? So, and I think that's a good place to be the goal, right? Is first understanding what the arguments are, and then if there's any, plot holes or missing logic or something like that, then you can start to critique it on that level, right? So we're going to watch a few minutes of this, okay? And I'm absolutely loving it. Um, I am going to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I'm loving her commentary on this. Okay, this is a 41-minute video, and I've watched every minute of it so far. And, like, I'm just blown away by the authenticity of this. Okay, and she describes herself as right of center. But to me, like, I think, according to the way I would phrase it, would be right leaning centrist, right? Because I'm a left leaning centrist. So I lean mostly toward the left on a lot of issues, but not all. Even on the issues that I lean left, I still look to alternate views to make sure that I'm not missing any logic and missing understanding that could pull me more toward the center or even more toward the right. There's some issues I lean mostly toward the right on.
Going to turn off the game with the Super Bowl, millions of people watching at time, that the power is in the viewer. And this is a message that I think conservatives can get behind. We are the ones that uplift these institutions. We are the ones that uplift the elites. We are the ones that uplift these corporations. You can simply turn the TV off. And that's how he chose to end, his show. So super significant imagery in that. But I guess we can make the joke that Kendrick Lamar should have told us at the beginning of the performance to turn the TV off. Hi, hi, hi. And then you think that's a diss. You're coming up with a tweet to diss Kendrick Lamar when Kendrick Lamar has simultaneously pulled off the biggest diss in rap history on American television for hundreds of millions of people to watch. It's like, okay, maybe we sit this one out. Maybe we think to ourselves, this is something I just don't yet understand and I'm not yet ready to engage with. And I need to go think about that a little bit more and come back to it. And if you're a conservative who wants to critique Kendrick Lamar, I will give you some spark notes as to how I would do that if I were you. I would start off by listening to what he's actually saying. And if you say, I can't understand what he's saying, give it a quick little Google. Go to Spotify with his 86 million monthly listeners and listen to one song that you heard and then see what you can critique on that. He gave you plenty of critique of the American system, of American history, of American imagery for you to engage with from a conservative perspective and say, I disagree with maybe this woke outlook on blackness. I mean, just take a look at this image here. He has black people come together, make an American flag. He raps in the middle of it. They have, their fists up in the air. They then crouch over one another in a form of symbolism to sort of say, we built this country on the backs of black Americans and of black men and women. You could have critiqued that. You could have said, I don't agree with this sort of imagery, and I don't think, America is built on the backs of black people. And even if it is, I don't think we're still systemically racist to this day. But instead, you said this.
Yeah, that argument, I just don't get it. I really don't. I think when that argument is made that it wasn't built on the backs of black people, I'm trying to see the logic there, right? And the other thing too is is it even worth trying to make that argument that it wasn't? We know enough about it. Hopefully to know enough to say there was a lot of things that were built and constructed, right? That was on the backs of black people. Okay. So again, I just don't understand the logic there at all. Why do you need even if it's not true, okay, which I seriously don't think that's the case, right? But even if it's not true, why is that the hill you're willing to die on? Why is that the most relevant thing for you to argue on, right?
Is a mumble rapper, I can't hear what he's saying, which calling Kendrick Lamar a mumble rapper.
So when I first watched the performance, I didn't actually watch it. I watched someone do a reaction to it. Okay. And of course they had a filter over it. So a lot of the stuff I couldn't see, right? And I wasn't expecting all these different symbolisms and all these things. I was expecting just a regular performance that might have had, that song Not Like Us in it, right? So that was the only thing I was expecting. Is he going to play that song? He probably is. Just because he was kept telling, just because he kept hearing that he can't. Because I do watch Josh Johnson, so I love Josh Johnson's um, commentary about the whole thing, about how Drake kept trying to sue Kendrick Lamar, saying he can't play the song, and the NFL came out and said he could play whatever song he wants. Okay, and so I love that he actually did play it, and I love that he teased us about it a little bit. Like, I want to play their favorite song, but we know people love to sue. So I love that aspect of it. But like I said, I wasn't expecting, you know, that level of a performance, right? And and even then, like, I don't know that much about Kendrick Lamar. I've seen a few of his videos. I love the one he did with Taylor Swift. I think that was an amazing freaking video. Okay, absolutely love that one. And then there's a few other songs that I've heard from Kendrick that I absolutely love, but I don't remember like what the names of them were. Okay, so I am a huge fan. I just need to like start exploring more of his catalog and his videos and everything else, especially after this. Okay, you know, I didn't know Kendrick Lamar was like talking about all these different things. I didn't know that. Um, I think that's amazing. So again, like that's a lot of the reason why a lot of these things I wasn't catching, but I did catch a few lines in there that made me think like, oh, that's interesting. A few lines in there, I heard it like the 40 acres and a mule, and then I thought that's something to take note of.
If you could just get that overactive imagination of yours to work for you instead of against you, maybe you could. What are you doing?
This means something. This is important.
I don't know what the relevance there is, like with the rest of the performance, And then I was hearing um, Samuel Jackson saying some pretty controversial things, and I'm like, why is Samuel L. Jackson, you know, being critical of Kendrick Lamar right now? It's saying like he's deducting a life, and then talking about the whole playing the game thing, and I was like, well, that's interesting, you know, but I did make the connection that the role that Samuel Jackson was playing. So there's the thing there. But I did find it interesting, and I was taking note of it. Okay, so there was a lot of interesting things happening.
Is like that scene in Inglorious Bastards where they're like Troy Glazer. It's like, okay, you don't know what a mumble rapper is because he is the antithesis of a mumble rapper. But okay. So if you want to critique that, critique that. Critique the fact that he says he's going to start a revolution and the revolution's going to be televised. Critique that. Critique the fact that he had a moment in front of the president and chose to put this like sort of American imagery out there and give this massive critique of American culture. Critique the sort of white supremacy notes and themes that he's accusing America of having all throughout. Critique the fact that.
But he's not wrong on those issues. He's really not. Um, Now, if you want to say America as a whole, is guilty of that, then that's where I could see like pushing back against that argument. Okay. And like that kind of feeds into the whole systemic racism thing, right? I could definitely see a lot of pushback against that too. But then again, the pushback against America not being guilty of those things, I would say the loopholes in hiring is a huge problem because you still have to put your like background information on the application. And then if they don't like the background that you have, your race, your gender, your whatever else, all they gotta do is throw your application away. They don't have to call. And even though they're not supposed to do that, they're supposed to look at your qualifications, right? And consider everyone equally. There's no like enforcement of that. So who's going to come in and make sure that everyone's given, equal opportunity? Nobody. There's no one who's going to come in and make sure that you were given a fair chance. No one's going to do that. And so I think the principles we stand on is that those things aren't okay because we do have anti-discrimination laws, okay? But there is a lot of loopholes that people can find to get around that. And I think we should talk about those things because it is important.
Samuel L. Jackson is being utilized as an Uncle Tom. Critique the sort of boxed way in which he's viewing the black intellect and how black people are allowed to show up in politics and how they're allowed to view black culture and being ghetto. Those are valid critiques. That's what I would give you as your spark notes here. And if I could find something that you could actively appreciate in this show, I mean, there's a lot going on, but meritocracy being number one. I mean, Kendrick Lamar's got where he's at, purely out of merit. So that should be something to appreciate because that's what we've been screaming from the rooftops. We want meritocracy. That's where.
So what I would say about, having Samuel Jackson being a Uncle Tom, right? I don't see it that way. I really don't. I don't see that character being an Uncle Tom at all. That's not the impression I got from it. The impression I get from it is that he's not solely focusing on race. Okay? And that might sound kind of confusing at first, but let me go and try to explain this. If you have everyone who plays that role as a white guy, right? And everyone who's on the other side of the fence, they're like all black, right? Now you're drawing a distinct line between the two races, okay? And that is when you're focusing way too much on race, in my opinion, okay? But a lot of these like faulty narratives that people can have and faulty assumptions and fall into the trap of these different like stereotypes and statistics and all these other things. It's not based on race. Anyone can develop these types of talking points, okay? If you go and look at a lot of the black conservatives who believe in 1350 and don't see the problem with repeating it over and over and over again. That, I think, is along the lines of what we're seeing there. Okay. The basic premise there is anyone can go down the wrong path and develop faulty assumptions about the world we live in. Okay. Now, that's one of them.
Kendrick Lamar ends up in the hierarchy of meritocracy. He is not a DEI hire to the rap industry. He purely got there because of his words. Also, not like us in the calling out of Drake, which people are minimizing and saying you just made the Super Bowl about rap beef. He is calling out Drake, one of the titans in the music industry, who has a long-standing career that has just like dominated the sound waves of America for how long, and he's calling him a predator, a pedophile, and a man who likes little girls. I thought that was what we were on as conservatives, was calling out the predators, calling out the pedophiles, calling out the human traffickers, calling out the people who were after minors and protecting their innocence. You could not have chosen a better time and place and a better person to do that to, and to do that, for, than this moment at the Super Bowl and the halftime show. So could we at the very least appreciate that? Not to mention,
That is a fantastic point to be made right there. And I really love that she's pointing that out. Like, even if you disagree overall with his views on politics, because he's calling out predators and because he's like standing on um, a good foundation as far as that goes, then like you shouldn't be like picking everything he says apart like that, right? Like you should focus on the good points and then like slightly criticize the things that you find are the most important that maybe he gets wrong. You know,
This is like a deep cut, but the juxtaposition between like male and female culture and, you know, femininity and masculinity that is present all throughout the show. There is a very clear cut line right down the middle of black men and how they engage in this show and black women and how they engage in this show. And he calls out the ladies and the ladies do their, you know, their thing in their feminine. He calls out the men and the men do their thing in their masculine. Conservatives, y'all are supposed to appreciate that. We're supposed to appreciate that. And it
see it, and I do disagree with that. I think being masculine should not be something only men can do, right? Like, I would consider bodybuilding as a masculine activity, but there's some women who loves lifting weights and being athletic and, you know, all these other things. And then you even have women that are bodybuilders, right? Who, for the most part, like their bodies look manly, okay? And, you know, to each their own. Like, that's the way to look at it, to each their own. That's the way that they want to express themselves, then so be it. It doesn't make them any less of a woman, you know. And if a woman wants to go work on an oil rig, so what? Let her go work on an oil rig if that's what she wants to do. If she wants to go drive a truck, let her. Like, it's a free country, right? So I don't think we should be trying to lock people into gender norms and say, oh, you're a woman, you shouldn't be, lifting weights like that. Again, like, this goes to that side of the conservatism that I don't like, where it's like trying to like shame and disown people because they don't follow gender norms. Okay, I don't think that's okay. I think people are extremely unique, and everyone is different. And some people are going to fall into what most would consider, normal for that gender. Okay, but it's not always going to be that way. Like, you ever heard of tomboy? There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a tomboy, you be a tomboy, right?
all it requires is like digging deeper for just a second, just a little bit, and taking that knee-jerk reaction of I don't like this because it's rap music, or I don't like this because it's ghetto, which arguably, yes, it very much is, and he was leaning into that 100%, and saying, but what is it that people appreciate about this? How?
See, I don't get how it's ghetto. That, like, maybe that's like a difference in understanding, right? For me, ghetto is basically where like you're living in poverty, okay? And it's a way of describe, like Akon's video ghetto, right? Like, that's my understanding of ghetto. Maybe there's others, okay? Like, someone saw that I had a fan, in my car that plugged into the cigarette lighter because I didn't have an air conditioner. Oh, that's ghetto, they said. So apparently that was too ghetto for me to do that, right? But at the same time, you know, when it's really hot and like you need something to help you cool off, what are you going to do? You don't have an air conditioner. You're going to put a fan in there, right? And did I care that that was too ghetto? No, I didn't. You know why? I was more concerned about comfort than how it looked. I don't care if it looks bad that I have a fan clipped to my dashboard. Okay. And I'm sure anyone else who doesn't have an air conditioner would probably do the same thing.
How did this get as large as it is for him to be the Super Bowl halftime show? Not once, but twice now. And there's a lot there. It's not just mumbling, I promise.
I was telling you before when we were talking about the show today that it reminds me of, like, in my experience, like learning foreign languages. My family lived overseas and I had to learn foreign language, and like it all sounds like gibberish to you. Until you kind of like slow down, you can recognize, like, okay, wait, this word sounds exactly like it does in English. It just, they have this little different spin on it, the grammar, the structure, and then it all kind of like, oh, if you invest a little bit of time and it's a little bit of effort required, a small amount of effort to put together, okay, there's actually something of merit here. And then, hey, you acquire a new language. Or reading a book. If I'm reading a book and I kind of zone out for a minute, I miss the meaning of a sentence or two, then okay, I have to go back and like put that together. And yeah, that takes some effort, but then I'm learning I'm appreciating this art form. I'm appreciating the substance of what this book is telling me. And I feel like with this in particular, it's like, it's not an easily necessarily digestible thing if it's completely foreign to you. But that doesn't mean that there's not substance, and doesn't mean that there's not high art there necessarily. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you're almost proving Kendrick Lamar right if you're having this kind of pearl clutching, dismissive reaction out the gate, when for so long it's been like, okay, we don't, rap doesn't deserve a seat at the cultural table because.
There you go. That is a perfect point that he just made. Like, if you're just completely dismissive of it, because it's rap or because, whatever else, and you don't even like give it a chance to understand what he's saying first and what all the symbolisms mean, then you're kind of proving his point.
It's all about promiscuity. It's all about glorifying violence and all this stuff. And here he is, somebody who's, calling out pedophiles, who's got something of substance to say about America, about,
That's one thing, man, I really hate is when people issue a blanket statement like that against rap. It's glorifying this. It's, talking about dealing drugs, and that's a great thing. It's talking about, ODing on this and this and that. And little do they know, most of the time, like, there's going to be rap that's going to do all that stuff. Okay? And those are what I call party songs, right? That's exactly what it is. Or, like, they'll look at, gangster rap, right? Where it does, like, talk a lot about, like, killing and, this and that and everything else. And what I got to say to that is, like, you will critique gangster rap for promoting violence, but you'll go and watch John Wick and root for John Wick, right? Like, you're actively rooting for a hitman who killed people as a career, okay? And didn't matter who he was killing. He wasn't allowed to ask why or anything. They just give him a name and boom, they're dead. And you're rooting for this man like he's a hero or something, right? And, in the case that we're seeing, in the movie, right? It's easy to forget that because the people he's going after are also criminals.
Killer, big killer, big killer, drug dealer, scandalous nigga, let's nigga, come again, me say big killer, big killer, big killer, grave digger, scandalous nigga, let's nigga. Got to step in, so I had to put a slug up in your chest. Should've wore that vest. Talking shit, I only get that ass put to rest. So nigga, come flex. Hey, get that yo, don't fuck with the bone. When I'm hanging and banging and slanging, swinging close to the dome. Nigga, watch that chrome. Body back that ass on. Killer, make killer. Shoot him if they move. Running with the AK-47, watch him fall down. Running with the AK-47, AK-47. Nigga, what's up with y'all now? Running with the AK-47, bucket heat heavy. Nigga, let away I with him when I get up in him. Running with the AK-47, bucket heat heavy. Nigga, let away I with him when I get up in him. Running with the AK-47, bucket heat heavy. Bustin' niggas in the belly, then I follow with the 357, and then the automatic second get him. Niggas let away I with him when I get up in him. Hit him and I really meant to split him. Put these fingers on their ass like an overdose to finish sell it. Murder, nigga wanna pick a visit with it. We got a coffin that fit you in it. The bullets come with it. Heard a nigga supposed to be on the stalk, so now we taking caution when we walk. A lot of niggas can talk, they better not be acting. Nigga better show me some affirmative action, cause I'ma take a baby mo coming through blasting. And innocent nigga, you turn around and go back. Cause nigga that crossfires, no lie. The motherfucking bullets fly by, be blind. It's like a level war, so motherfucker bring it on, bitch. Hell yeah, we been ready for the longest. What you gonna come with? Yes, we said it. So nigga to die, we got to be ready, ready. Got into the game just a little too deep. Now motherfuckers on the creep, but I can't sleep. Until my enemies rest in peace, rest in peace, man.
You know, but I'm sure if we had seen a lot more of the horrible things that he had done in his past, it would become a lot harder to root for John Wick. Like at a certain point, we would say, okay, you know, whatever is happening to him, like he kind of has this coming because of all the horrible stuff he done in his past, right? But at the same time, like this is where it gets complicated. At the same time, we can also say he's going after bad people, right? You know, and when it comes to rap overall, like even when it does talk about all these different things, a lot of times there's a positive message behind it. It's not about promoting that lifestyle. It's about exposing it. It's about saying these are the problems and these are the things that needs to get fixed. These are the things we need to talk about. Okay? When you come from a lifestyle like that and you become an artist, and then people want to tell you, okay, you're not allowed to talk about all these different things, you know, that you've experienced. How are you going to tell someone that? What do you think they're going to write about? They're going to write about the things they've seen and the problems that they see with it. Okay?
Black people, about Black culture, how it's being used, how it might be being exploited, etc. And rather than giving him that seat at the table and saying, yeah, okay, thank you for taking this art form seriously, we'll take it seriously with you. It's like the immediate reaction is just kind of like, hey, oh, he's mumbling, I don't understand this, and it's kind of like you are kind of proving him right at a certain point. Then you're playing into that exact Uncle Sam caricature of like, oh, Black people, you have to behave a certain way, stay over there. And the reality is like he's transcended that by virtue of the success that he's had in real life, by being one of the biggest artists in the world, by having as many monthly listeners on Spotify as Taylor Swift right now, which is crazy. So he's proven that there's resonance to what he's saying. He's proven that there's substance to it. And look, I'm saying this not as somebody who's particularly a Kendrick Lamar fan. I mean, maybe I am a little bit more after you explaining this to me and seeing a little bit more of this. But in some sense, it's like we got to stop clutching our pearls and start to actually understand what's going on in the culture and appreciate it, even if it's not necessarily for you. It's like, I don't know, it's worth being aware of what's going on, because the more that we kind of just pull back and say, well, it has to fit this box, or it has to be to my liking. America is really bigger than that. Art's really bigger than that. And if we want to win that middle ground culture, we have the political high ground right now on the right, because you've won this election, but that's because of common sense solutions to the border and to crime and
and one other thing I want to go and point out here, I think what we should do is, if you want to have an actual discussion about whether he's right or not, then going through his actual lyrics, like, that's the first step.
Big issues like that. But if you want to actually win over hearts and minds, if you want to actually have a seat at the cultural table and be a part of that conversation,
Right.
then you're going to have to actually be literate in these things and be able to engage on that level. And
For
anyway, so
sure.
I just think people are, by this reaction is just showing that maybe he's actually more right than not in what he's saying.
He's kind of onto something. And the thing is like, okay, there's
And I would have loved if they would have pulled up the lyrics from one of the songs that he had, played during that performance, right? And just take at least a few minutes going through it and say, like, okay, there's a lot of things like I agree with here. And even if there's things you disagree with, then you can go through and explain, like, okay, I disagree with this because of this, this, and that, right? And I think that's what we're going to do. Like, we're absolutely going to do that.
Going to be rappers who you listen to where 100% the critiques that you're putting out online right now make 100% sense. They actually are mumble rappers. When you look into their lyrics, they're not talking about anything. They're talking about like shaking booty and doing drugs and getting prostitutes and pimping people out and gangbanging and all this stuff. It's not Kendrick. And if you take the time to look into his lyrics, he's already safeguarding himself from the arguments that people are going to make about him in the performance itself. That is who Samuel Jackson is in that performance. He is you if you are critiquing this halftime show without actually engaging in it. He does it for you in between the songs. He says, no, it's too loud. It's too ghetto. He's saying, essentially, I don't understand what you're saying. What is this? You're bringing your homeboys out. I don't like it. Deduct one life. He's doing all the things you're doing on Twitter, and he already did it for you in the performance. So he got ahead of you in your critique and is basically saying, now, if you're going to say something that I already haven't said. Like go ahead and do something new, do something nuanced, and people are then falling into the trap and not doing the nuanced thing. And I could go into a whole nother video about how Kanye West is doing that to everybody right now, but we're not ready for that conversation. We're not ready for that conversation. Now, in one of Kendrick Lamar's most famous songs, All Right, he plays a Fox News excerpt, and I believe, what's the guy's name? Geraldo Rivera or something like that. He's a really big Fox News host. And if you listen to the song, he plays the clip where Geraldo says that he has done more damage, or hip hop has done more damage to young African Americans than racism in recent years. And this has been a commonality in Kendrick's work of sort of getting ahead of the criticism of his work so that you can engage with it on its merits and you can engage with what he's saying. And I could not urge you more to, if you're going to check out a rapper in this lifetime and actually engage with rap in any way, shape, or form, have it be Kendrick Lamar. Listen to a few of his songs and see what you find in it. Or if you don't want to listen to it because you don't like the way...
So I think, since that's the one that she brought up, that's the one we're going to check out. So I think she said it was called All Right. And playing a clip of someone saying that, I think that's just so, like, disingenuous. That, like, rap is the cause. And, like, I get it. To a certain point, like, it does, especially, like, the gangster rap and that kind of thing, it does kind of normalize that kind of lifestyle, right? And, like, desensitize people to it. Okay? But we also have to take into consideration what is more destructive. Okay? Hearing about it in a song or actually living it. Can we think about that for a moment? Like, walking home from school and seeing people dealing drugs on a regular basis. Seeing people get shot on a regular basis. Seeing people running from the police on a regular basis. Seeing crime on a regular basis. Like, if we think about What If It Was Me, right? That video that I did a reaction to on the reaction channel. Okay, where Tech 9 was saying we see crime like every single day, right? And Tech 9 was saying that he wanted to, sell a lot of CDs and make millions and get out of that situation. He didn't want to be, stuck in the ghettos anymore, right? And so, what's more destructive? Okay, being there, stuck in ghettos, and this goes for white ghettos too, goes for all ghettos, anywhere where people are stuck in high crime areas, okay, and seeing horrible things happen, right? What is worse? The music they're listening to or seeing it happen in real life? Okay, so no, the music is not the biggest problem. I could see it being a problem, for other people who aren't living in that situation and they hear that and then think, that's a good idea, right? It's okay for them to do it. Maybe it's okay for me too. But I think that would be a rare occurrence. I could be wrong, but to me, I just think that'd be a rare occurrence, right? Like, think about violent video games. How many of us grew up playing GTA, right? It's good to go around, stealing people's cars and beating them up and taking their money. But how many of those people went out in real life and did that stuff because they did it in a video game? Okay, I think that's what we really have to start thinking about, because isn't violent music the same amount of influence as violent video games? Whereas violent video games might be even more of an influence because you're actively doing it yourself, right? But you're just making a character do it. And then I would say it's just as much of an influence to watch movies depicting violence like that. Okay? So, like, there's so many different areas in the media that talks about these things that doesn't necessarily promote it. It's just exposing it as something that is normal in certain parts of society. That's it. And even for a lot of artists that talk about, dealing drugs and killing people and all this other stuff, it doesn't mean they're promoting it. Um, it could mean that they are wanting to expose it, that this is part of life in some areas, and this is something we need to talk about. That's it.
That rap sounds, and that makes you kind of like shut off a little bit. Look up the lyrics to some of his songs, and I'm trying to think of like more docile ones that like they can be a little bit more palatable. But honestly, just like jump in the deep end and listen to some of his popular songs, and see if there's anything that you find in it. Maybe start with the ones that were featured in his halftime show and see if there's anything there. And if you get to the other end of it and you're like, I still don't like this, at the very least you can say, I actually engaged with it, and I didn't just like shut it off as something I didn't like because I don't like it and because I don't like what this represents and what this means. And then you'll have way more ammunition to critique the thing you've seen than.
I absolutely love the way that she's explaining this, okay? Because if you just assume that everything is this or it's that or it's woke or it's this or that, and like you don't engage with it at all, then your critiques are not based in fact. They're based in emotion. But if you like actually take the time to look up some of the lyrics and go through them and understand like what's in there, and you engage with that, now you're engaging with it on a much deeper level. So in that case, you would be coming at it from an educated point of view, where you actually know what the subject matter is that you're critiquing, and not just assuming that you know what that is.
I didn't understand him, and therefore I don't like this. The Super Bowl is about crowd pleasing, and this was not a crowd pleaser. Now I'm gonna get off my soapbox. This was just this was the right crossover for me. Rap and politics is where I'm at, and I haven't had the chance to really go in depth about these things. And now Kendrick Lamar gave me the perfect opportunity to do so. Do I agree with a lot of the political symbolism that I watched in the halftime show? No. But do I completely understand the perspective? Absolutely. And there's Wemby howling in the background to let you know that he understands as well. And he was, in fact, screaming A minor.
So I would love to know, like, on a deeper level, right? Like, what symbolism she disagreed with and why. Like, we got it into it a tad bit in here, right? But I would like to have that conversation at some point. Like, if I could, like, that's what I would like to know. Like, go through and, watch the halftime show and pick out certain scenes, right? And then, like, pick it apart. What is it specifically about the symbolism here that you disagree with? Okay.
at the bar with us on that day. And as my dogs are howling, guys, those are my thoughts on the Super Bowl halftime show. I could go on. This has been, what, 40 minutes? I could go on for hours about this stuff. I didn't even, we scratched the surface, okay?
Right,
And if
right.
I'm saying that and you didn't like the halftime show, maybe you just scratched the surface as well. And we could.
I loved it. I tell you what, I absolutely loved everything about it. Even though a lot of things like was kind of going over my head at the time, but I still was like, okay, there's a lot of interesting things here, and I would like to start like trying to understand it a bit. So I watched some videos, and they were going through like pointing out all the different Easter eggs and everything that was like important, you know, things to take note of. And I was like, there's so much there that's like there's no way anyone could say that that's like surface level, like just being woke or just being this or that. No, like, yeah, I think it was an amazing performance, and I absolutely loved it.
We can talk about this. And
Right, let's talk about
I'm
it.
just really trying to get you guys to like Kendrick Lamar. Please, please. I need a few other conservatives in the club that like rap music. Guys, thank you.
I'm working on my application, Amala.
Yes, Taylor's okay. Taylor heard this all out multiple times now leading up to this video. So here, round of applause for Taylor. And round of applause for you guys as well if you made it this far into.
You know, there is nothing wrong with liking rap music, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, okay? And if you want to, like, understand and appreciate rap music that actually is rap music, you go look at Gangster's Paradise, okay? That song right there was, like, perfect. And like I said, living in the ghetto, seeing crime on a regular basis, you know, not knowing, you know, if you're going to live to see 25 or not, right? And all these other things. And and Coolio in that song is talking about how he wishes things were different. But adaptation comes into play, right? Because only the strong survive. And in order to survive in that kind of society, you have to harden up. That's the only way. And as much of, and it's extremely sad that anyone uh, should have to view society like that, but some people, like, that's their reality. You know, and I think rap music is a great way to experience that and start to understand that a lot of times when we see people doing horrible things, you know, it's not because they wanted to, but it's because society has dictated to them, this is the life that you're going to live. Okay? And one of the things that I thought was interesting was a debate that Officer Tatum had. Okay? And Officer Tatum was talking about how, like, they funneled in the drugs, right? And Officer Tatum says, did they make them sell the drugs? Okay, they didn't point a gun to their head and make them sell the drugs. Okay, and I wish the person he asked that would have had a better response. Okay, and what my response would have been, they had other ways of forcing people to sell those drugs in order to survive. Okay, and the way that we do that is once you get in the system, you develop a record. And with that record, your opportunities start diminishing more and more and more. And the more opportunities close, okay, the more likely you are to go pick up those drugs and go and sell them. And probably get caught eventually, and more doors are going to close. Because now you have trafficking and drug charges on your record. Okay? So now more doors are going to close. This is what I call the death spiral. Because there's no, like, real way out of it. You know, and I think this is one of the biggest problems, is what the war on drugs has done to people. And I think it completely ignores the fact that sometimes people are struggling and they're looking for any way out, and be able to survive. Okay, it's called adaptation.
The video. Guys, if you did make it this far into the video, put a little American flag in the comments down below, because this has been all about America, hasn't it? This has been all about America. Guys, leave your thoughts on the halftime show in the comments down below. What were your thoughts before you watched this video? What are your thoughts after? Where do you stand now? As always, if you disagree with anything I said in this video, duke it out in the comments down below, but do so respectfully. We encourage healthy debate on this channel. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every single day. Ooh, should I be a rapper?
Bars.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I would love to hear some songs that she would put out. Okay. I think she is incredibly intelligent. I think she's extremely fair. Even the points that she disagrees with, she still engages with it critically instead of just, outright bashing it, right? Like, for example, there was some things that she disagrees with overall with Kendrick Lamar. But does she go and say Kendrick Lamar is, oh, he's just a woke rapper, he's nothing. He's just something we need to just disregard completely. Don't spend any time with him at all. It's not worth it. Okay? He's just a woke liberal who doesn't know anything. She didn't say that. And that is the type of mentality that irritates me so much. And even if it was, the same thing but in reverse, coming from maybe like a Kendrick Lamar fan and talking about, the conservatives, and saying like similar things towards conservatives overall, I would disagree with them too. Okay? And it's just like Tom McDonald, a lot of times he says, I don't want to spend the time, talking to anyone who don't get it. Right? And I think that's disingenuous. I think that is selling people short. That, if they don't understand, then they'll never understand. Or they're just woke sheep, or they're this or they're that. I don't think that's a good way to look at other people who disagree. I think disagreement is healthy. And I think people should be more willing to engage in critical analysis, right? Instead of just writing people off and being done with it. I don't think that's a good approach. So I loved her approach here. I am definitely going to be subscribing, and we may end up checking out some more of her videos. So if she has other videos that are like really like informative or anything like that, I am going to be more than willing to, go through and do more like reviews and reactions and that kind of thing. So, all right, that's it for now, y'all.